This video is sponsored by Launch Tabletop, a full-scale board game manufacturer with a print-on-demand prototyping service, Launch Lab. Hang on until the end of the video for more information and a discount code. Hello, so I'm back with another 10 lessons about board game design that I've learnt from 10 years of making games. And today we're looking at numbers 30 down to 21. So as always, I have a deck of cards with different statements written on them that I've written previously, so I don't know what order these are going to come out. But I'll show you on the screen the topics that we're going to be talking about today. Through the magic of editing, you get to see them before I do. Okay, but we'll be drawing cards randomly from this deck, and the first topic today is your game must have a strong hook. I see it frequently on online forums where people will share details about their game. Often they're sharing a sell sheet or something like that. So basic information about their game. They've laid it all out. We've got the artwork, we've got the component list, we've got details about the theme and so on. But there's no hook. There's nothing there that makes me want to look at that game or makes it stand out from everything else that's existed before. There's no sort of reason in there for me to pay attention, and certainly for a publisher to pay attention and want to produce this game or sell this game. So you've got to work out what is the reason why anyone should care about your game. And if you've created something which uses a theme that's been used a million times before, that has mechanisms that have been used a million times before, why would anyone care? You might have put those things together in a way that's never been done before. Okay, fine, tell us about it. What is it that you've done differently that other people haven't done? Okay, why should we care? Why is your game going to sell right now? Why should this matter to a publisher? And it's not enough to just say, because it's really fun, I've played it loads and everybody really enjoyed it. Now there's got to be a hook. Now it might be a mechanical hook. It might be using a mechanism in a new, clever way. Explain it. You've got to be able to explain it very briefly in a sentence or two, but you want to get that across to the publisher. This is what's mechanically new about my game. It might be a theme that hasn't been done before, or that you've got a brand new twist on it. Okay, fine, that can be your hook, even if the mechanisms in the game are relatively sort of well worn. It might be a central component that's going to grab people's attention, so the game has real table presence. It could be as simple as, your game is similar to other games that have gone before, but you can play it in a really short time frame. Like, for example, my game Doodle Rush is essentially all the fun of drawing games that have gone before, like Pictionary or whatever, but you can play it in 6 minutes. There's a hook. A hook for Pikoko was, it's like a trick-taking game, but you can't see your own cards. That's a hook. Or Throne was a trick-taking game, but you use dice instead of cards. There's a hook. Now, I'm not saying that those are perfect. Those are my examples, okay? And some of them have sold better than others and so on. But if you can't make that sort of statement, if you can't make a simple statement which explains why people should care about your game and what your game represents, you're going to struggle to get anywhere, because the publisher's not going to be able to explain it to distributors, the distributors are not going to be able to explain it to retailers, and the retailers are not going to be able to explain it to customers. Your game needs to flow. It's a very broad statement, and I'm sure that there are lots of exceptions to this, but I'm always impressed by Stonemeyer's approach. They lay out their submission guidelines which say we want to see games where there aren't constant interruptions, essentially. And it's not true of all Stonemeyer games, okay, sometimes they seem to break that rule, but by and large in a Stonemeyer game, I play a turn, you play a turn, I play a turn, you play a turn, and we continue along that pattern until the game ends. There's not constant, right, we've hit the end of the round, so now we have to go through this sequence, we have to reset this and this and this. Maybe, there's not lots of different phases of play where we play things in a slightly different way, where we're playing like this, now we're into a different phase where we have to do something slightly differently. That doesn't tend to happen. And I think that's a good thing. There are loads of games, don't get me wrong, there are loads of games which do that I really enjoy, where we do have slightly different phases. But if it happens too frequently in a game, it really interrupts things. If you look at, if you compare football, so soccer, okay, as much as I hate calling it soccer, I better call it that for an international audience. If we look at football compared to rugby, which is the big game played in Wales, Rugby has quite a lot of interruptions. Football has interruptions too, throw-ins, free kicks, corner kicks, all those sorts of things, but they happen fast, right? The play is interrupted and then it continues rapidly. Not so much with rugby, it's constantly interrupted. I understand nothing about soccer or rugby, so I'm probably barking up the wrong tree by using those analogies, and I know people love both games, but my personal preference is for something where I get into that flow state, I feel like I know what I'm doing, is not constantly being interrupted and reset as we play. Don't waste publishers' time. This is really important. In fact, I think this is vital, and it was a very early lesson for me. I think in the first year that I went to Essen Spiel to pitch to publishers, I really tried to show my games to everybody, okay? Everybody that I thought might be interested. And what I found was that actually I started to get some interest in my games, but sometimes I'd be getting interest in my games from publishers that really weren't high on my wish list. And that's a real issue, because if they're coming back to you first, and you haven't yet given a chance to the publishers that you really want to work with, well then you're reluctant to sign the game with those people who are now interested. And they've taken time to test your game, they've taken you at face value, they think that, okay, this is a designer who really wants to work with us. So when you go back to them and say, do you know, I'm not quite ready to sign this contract yet, I want to wait a little bit, that's really insulting to them. Don't waste people's time. You need to, if you're showing a game to a publisher, you need to be willing to work with that publisher. You need to be happy to sign the game to them. And that might mean signing the game to them even while you've got other parties still waiting, who might be a bigger publisher, a more established publisher. As we've said previously, that's not always the be-all and end-all. Sometimes signing with the most enthusiastic publisher is the better way anyway. But certainly don't go around showing your game to people who you don't really want to make the game, because you're just going to waste their time. Sublicensing is a mystery. Yeah, I'm now, as I say, 10 years into this process of making games, and I still don't fully understand sublicensing. It comes up in most contracts, and it ought to be in all. If it's not in your contract, you probably want to ask about it. But sublicensing is where a publisher will allow another publisher to make your game on their behalf, really. Often generally it's foreign language editions. So a publisher doesn't have wide enough distribution to get a game into this particular territory. So although you've made an agreement with one publisher, they're looking to other publishers to produce your game abroad. And they will take a royalty payment from that international publisher. So your chosen publisher is now getting royalties from another publisher, and then you get a cut of those royalties. But your cut of those royalties needs to be significantly higher than your normal cut, okay? Because the publisher that you've signed the deal with is not receiving as much money as they would be through selling through retail. And actually, they're not actually doing, a huge amount of, they haven't got the same costs. So you ought to be taking a bigger amount. Now, my contracts have ranged from not mentioning sublicensing at all through to, I think the highest rate I've had in a contract was I'd get 35% of the royalties from sublicensing, which is a massive figure compared to other contracts. Not a massive amount of money, because the royalties that the publisher's getting aren't that much, but 35%. I've had several at 20%, and then I've had some as low as sort of 5%. It's all over the place, and I don't understand it well enough to know what's right and what's wrong. And often when I talk to the publishers, they're all doing different things, different sorts of deals. So ultimately, you kind of need to go to the publisher and say, can you break this down into real terms? This was some really good advice I had recently from Matthew Dunstan, who is a very successful game designer that I know. Ask the publisher for real terms. How much money would I get if you sold, if a sub-licensed edition was sold elsewhere in the world? What royalty would I get in real terms? And if you break it down like that, you can work out whether you're happy with that arrangement or not. Okay, but the figures are all over the place. So sub-licensing, total mystery to me. Time pressure might speed a publisher up, or it might make them bolt. This is a real challenge, managing this one, because you might have an offer on the table from a publisher, or an offer that seems to be pending, right? You're getting all the signs that this is going to happen soon, but you want the other publishers to speed up because really, you haven't made your mind up yet who you want to be working with. So what you'd like to have is 2 or 3 offers on the table. And so it's very tempting to go to those other publishers who haven't yet made an offer and say, you need to speed up, right? I've got this offer on the table. I've got an offer pending. Can you speed up? Can you speed up the process? Can you get my game tested quicker? Can you give me an answer by this date? The problem with doing that is what often happens is that the publishers that you're trying to put pressure on say, do you know, if you've got other offers, we can't really work at that pace. Just take the other offer and we'll move on. So you lose the publisher that you're applying pressure on when actually they may have been interested further down the line. Or you might get the response, oh yes, absolutely, we'll test it quickly and we'll get back to you by the end of the week. Or can you give us till the end of next week to give you an answer? The other problem with rushing them, of course, is what does that answer really mean? Yes, they might give you a contract, doesn't mean that they're ultimately going to publish the game. They might just be treading water, holding on to your game to give themselves the option of producing that game later. So what you really want is publishers taking as much time as they need to make a genuine decision that they really intend to produce your game. But that can be hard to do when you're pitching to multiple publishers at the same time. So it's always a balancing act. How much pressure do you apply? And sometimes if you apply too much, you lose them. Although sometimes if you apply the pressure, you get what you want at the end of it. Really difficult, and I think you have to feel it intuitively as you're doing it, but there's always scope for going wrong. It's one of the downsides of pitching to multiple people at the same time, frankly. Do not disrespect the giants who have gone before. Yeah, it's a bit of a personal bugbear of mine, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it as well, particularly in the early days when I first started playing games. But we can be very critical in this industry and players of the games that have gone before, the games that have started it all off, really. Particularly I'm thinking of things like Monopoly and Risk and stuff like that, Cluedo, Game of Life, Connect 4, Guess Who. Games which are of their time, okay? But for their time, they were astonishing games, and their designers deserve respect and credit, even though they're long since deceased. Okay, we stand on the shoulder of giants, right? We are building on what they've put in place before. It doesn't mean you have to love the games, doesn't mean that you have to play the games, but it does feel distasteful to just continuously bash them and bash people who enjoy playing them. These games are giants for good reason. Okay, they were the masterpieces of their age, right? They were the real innovations, and they're the reason that we're all here now. Yes, there's been an enormous boom since the birth of the internet and Settlers of Catan and all of that stuff that's gone on over the last 30 years or so. But there was an awful lot that happened before, and we can learn a lot from it. Okay, even those games that have outdated mechanisms have a lot of good stuff in them. There's a reason they've been enjoyed for so many centuries, and I think we can pull way too far in the other direction. I made a video, relatively recently, a year or so ago, maybe a bit longer, about roll and move as a mechanism. Roll and move now is so hated by gamers, and it's so unnecessary because it's a really good mechanism if used correctly, okay, if used carefully. And yes, there were many, many decades where roll and move was totally dominant and wasn't being used very effectively. But now we understand things a little bit better, and you can use roll and move in a really effective way in games like Deep Sea Adventure or Camel Up or That's Life, or Verflixt as it's now generally known. Those are fantastic roll and move games. There's a Stefan Feld game, Merlin. There's Colosseum by Wolfgang Kramer. These are excellent roll and move games. Loads of great children's ones. Go back and watch the video if you're interested in finding out a bit more about roll and move. But don't dismiss this stuff just because, it's been a bit overdone and maybe been a little bit misused or misunderstood in the past. There are still great lessons to be learnt from the stuff that giants have done in previous eras. Attend a local playtest group or start one. Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned previously about building a community, and that could be a community online, but it's also great to have people that you physically meet up with. A playtest group allows you to learn so much about the process. You can speak to people who've done it, who've published games, who have licensed games to publishers, or who have gone through lots and lots of rejections. They can give you tips about prototyping, you build friendships, a support network, people who are rooting for you. That's all fantastic. It gives you a deadline to work to because you know you're going to be going to that playtest meetup at the end of the week or the end of the month, so you better get something ready. And if you don't have one locally to attend, there's nothing stopping you starting one. Online, game designers talk to each other a lot. You just need to find people who are in your local area and arrange to just meet up in a pub or something like that. You know, meet up in a local meeting place. You don't even have to book it, right, to go to something like a bar and sit down with them, talk about game design, maybe play a game on a table there. It doesn't matter if you're in a noisy environment or whatever. That's how our playtest group started up 10 years or so ago, and it's still running now. It's fantastic. You're going to develop so much by attending a playtest group or starting one. And if you really can't make a physical one, there are virtual ones that you can join up on Discord and so on. Join forums. There are options for you. Virtual playtest groups, even if not physical ones. Your game is 10 times more complex than you think. Yeah, this is another lesson that you learn quite quickly as a game designer. Your game always feels really simple in your head, but actually, when you put it in front of other players, they're going to struggle with all sorts of things that seem easy to you. I had a meeting with Hasbro, okay? Years ago now. It was off the back of designing Pikoko and them liking the look of it, the appearance of it, and Doodle Rush as well, which was a very mass market friendly sort of game. So I had a meeting with Hasbro to look at new prototypes, and I knew that meeting was coming up, so very quickly I got to designing the simplest games that I've ever created. That was my intention, really go for super accessible. One of the games that I created was a precursor of Quazzle that I made with Rob Fisher. And Quazzle eventually was published by the Happy Puzzle Company, and they did a wonderful job of it. But actually, it was still too complex for Hasbro and the other mass market publishers that I was meeting around the time. And when I went to the London Toy Fair and I had my own little Quazzle stand in the Happy Puzzle Company booth, and I was pitching it to retailers, they were struggling to understand it. Now, this was the simplest game I'd ever created, and yet I still couldn't get retailers to quite grok what was going on. And that was baffling to me. But they would move on to the next table, which had the Genius Square on it, another Happy Puzzle product, and they were loving that because there are basically no rules. Your game is so much more complicated than you think it is. I don't know how you get around that apart from playtesting with multiple different groups, and especially trying to playtest with people who don't play many games and really genuinely watching and thinking, what are they struggling with here? Are they genuinely having a good game? Do they really understand what's going on? And if not, maybe I need to really pull it back. I've often given the advice to designers when they turn up at playtest groups with this massive sprawling epic game, which doesn't work in all sorts of different reasons and is way too complex for them to really unpick. Design the junior version of your game, just as an experiment. Okay, what would the junior version look like? What would it look like if you designed it for kids? You don't have to throw away your complex version at all. Just put it on the shelf, you can come back to it, but design the kids version. And that will probably be the genuinely accessible version that you can get into the market, because your kids version will probably be 10 times more complex than you intended, and it might actually be manageable for the average player. A pitch is a meeting of equals. Yeah, this is a big mistake that a lot of designers make. They think the publisher is doing them this huge favor and that they've got to beg and plead and suck up to the publishers and so on. That shouldn't be the way it is. Okay, this is a business arrangement. You're going in with something that they really, really want and need. Okay, and they have something that you want and need, or you may, depending on how the relationship builds. You might meet with them and think, I don't want to work with this person at all, as we've discussed in previous videos. You go in as equals. You're the game designer, they're the game publisher. Two different roles, but neither one of them is more important than the other. Okay, go into them with a professional, confident outlook and work at it as professionals. Don't go in there apologetically, and don't be overly grateful for the whole thing. Polite, of course, grateful, yes, for their time, but not like gushing over the publishers. You need to work together as two professionals who both know what they're doing and both have something to offer. Contacts for publishers are easy to find. Yeah, the amount of comments that I see about, well, how do I get in touch with publishers? How do I know who to get in touch with? How do I reach them? I mean, look at these boxes. They all have logos on them, right? These companies are not hard to find. You find the box of a game that's similar to yours, roughly in the same sort of genre. You look up that publisher, they'll have a website, and then on that website there are going to be contact details. Now, it might be an online form that you have to fill out, which is not my favourite thing. Or it might be that there's a direct email address, info@. You can email them, or you can find them on Facebook, or you can find them on Twitter or X or Instagram. There are lots of different ways to get in contact with these people. I use the Essenspiel convention sort of list on the Board Game Geek website. So Board Game Geek website, shortly before a convention, W. Eric Martin, who is, I don't know what his job role is, but he's very, very involved in running Board Game Geek. And he produces this massive list of potentially, over 1,000 games that are going to be produced at each, or released at each convention, particularly before Essenspiel. There's an enormous number of games released. So you can look at that and you can see which publishers are going to be attending. And that shows you as well which publishers are current, which ones are still, functioning, alive and well, because some of these publishers will have gone out of business years ago. So you get a feeling for who's current, you get a feeling for what sort of games they're producing right now. Now, that's not a guarantee that those are the sort of games they're going to be producing in the future, because they might be changing direction. These games will have been licensed a couple of years before they're actually released. But it gives you a good indication. And around the time of a convention, they will be expecting to meet with designers. So it's a good time to be reaching out to them a month or 6 weeks before and saying, could you meet with me at this convention? Once you've got in contact with them, you're going to get a response from some of them, maybe 50% of them, maybe 30% of them, but a good number of them will respond, and it might be a rejection. But now you've got an actual email address of a real, genuine person. Write them down, keep a log of them, and keep them updated as you contact that company again in the future. There you go, you've got your own little database of contacts. Now, there are databases that you can pay for in order to access them. Cardboard Edison has one, there's one called Tabletop Publishers, I think. I've found them of limited value because I've actually found that generally I can find those contacts anyway with a bit of work. It takes some of the work out of it, but maybe my contact list might be a little bit more up to date than their contact list, and I've got a feel for who these people are. I also think often those contact lists don't have specific people listed on them. They have the sort of info@ email addresses, whereas I really like to have a person's name, and maybe that person doesn't want to be included in some big database, or they might move on from their job after a year or so, so it's hard for a database to keep up if they keep those, those specific names on it. So yeah, by all means use those databases. I've paid for both of those and I do access those. But generally I find I keep my own list and it's just hard graft, going through the websites, finding the contact details. But it's not difficult. Okay, you should be able to find contacts for the majority of publishers. Some of the mass market ones, a little bit harder to approach, but this sort of hobby world that we've got around us, yeah, you can find those publishers online. Okay, so there we go. We've got through another 10 in my 100 lessons I've learned about the board game design and board game industry over the last 10 years or so. So we've still got 20 to go, so I hope I'll see you on the next video. All the best. Did you know that game boxes can be customised to whatever size you wish with LaunchLab? If you don't want a lot of wasted air in your box, or you want a box with enough space for future expansions, either way, LaunchLab has you covered. Visit launchtabletop.com and use the code AdamInWales for a 20% discount on your order.